Today we're going to talk about the three main types of Japanese single bevel knives and what they are used for. A lot of people will go to Japan and come back with like a deba or an usuba and not really understand what the purpose of that knife is, and so they end up using them incorrectly and causing a lot of damage. So today we're going to go over the three main kinds of Japanese knives and what their intended purposes actually are. So the three main kinds of Japanese single bevel knives that you will see are usuba, a deba, and a yanagiba. And there are some variations of these. So for example, usuba, this is a kamagata usuba, and it's kind of rounded here at the tip. The kakugata usuba is just a large rectangle, and it looks really similar to a nakiri. Usuba are vegetable knives, but they're not vegetable knives in the way that you would think of like a chef's knife or a nakiri would be, where you can just go and dice up stuff and use it in a normal home cooking kind of way. Usuba are really geared towards the kind of specialized vegetable cutting techniques that are common in Japanese cuisine. So for example, you'll see kasaramuki, where people are using this to do rotary peeling of daikon or carrots or cucumbers. You'll see them do sengiri, which is like a julienne technique, and a lot of types of mukimono type works where they're doing garnish or more intricate cutting design. It does not work well as a general purpose vegetable knife because A, it's a little bit thicker, so it wedges more in tall, dense food items when you're trying to cut them in half. Being a single bevel knife, B, it will also steer a lot more to one side, so you get very uneven cuts when you're not used to that kind of stuff. And C, they're extremely thin and extremely hard right at the edge. They're extremely brittle, and so if you don't have the right kind of cutting board, you're not using the right kind of technique, this is a knife that will chip much more easily. So if you're looking to learn about the kinds of cutting techniques that are normal in traditional Japanese cuisine, this is an awesome knife for that kind of stuff. If you're looking for a general purpose vegetable knife, this is not the way you want to go. Deba are used for fish butchery, right? It's not a general purpose butchery knife. It's not something that you would use to break down steaks or chicken or anything with really hard non-fish bones in there. But for fish butchery, it's awesome. There are a couple of main kinds of techniques people use. Sanmai oroshi is a technique used for kind of more normal fish like snapper or bronzino, and gomai oroshi is what you use for flatfish like flounder or fluke, and that's what this knife does. So this knife will be used for taking the heads off of fish, for removing the fillets from the bones, even sometimes breaking down the bones for stocks or fumets, for splitting heads in half. Oftentimes you'll see in Japanese kitchens, people have a couple of these, and one of them will be the tataki deba, and the other will be the oroshi deba. And the tataki deba is one that's usually like an older knife that's been beat up a little bit and is sharpened to be a little bit more tough and durable. And that's what they'll use for actually taking the heads off of larger fish. That's what they'll use for breaking the bones down into smaller pieces or for splitting the head in half. And the oroshi deba is the one that they keep in a little bit better shape, and that's the one they actually use for filleting the fish and removing it from the bones, where it's not going to get as much hard damage from bones. You can do all of that with one. You just have to be a little bit more careful with your technique when you do that kind of stuff, or utilize a micro bevel to help you deal with the toughness issues a little bit better. Deba are phenomenal for breaking down fish, but you do have to employ the kind of technique that they are designed for. So it's not just a general purpose knife that you can use whatever fish filleting technique you've been using. The angle that you hold it at, the movements that you use will be a little bit different. But if you're looking to do it, I have found that deba has made my fish butchery significantly more efficient, easier, and more fun. So that's what a deba is for. Not for chicken, not for meat, not for kabocha squash, for breaking down fish. The last one here is yanagiba. And again, there are variations of this kind of thing. So you'll see, for example, a takobiki, which is a long, slender, more rectangular shaped one, or a sakimaru takobiki, which is a kind of cool aesthetic design of one with a different tip shape. And the same for the yanagiba. You'll see a kensaki yanagiba, where it's got a cool kind of tip design. But the yanagiba, they all function in the same way. And they are knives geared towards slicing raw, boneless proteins. So sushi and sashimi, for skinning fish, for portioning fish, but not for breaking them down. And because they are extremely thin, and because they are hard and the angle is rather acute, they don't work well for things with hard crusts, like barbecue, where there's a thick bark on there, or for like really heavily seared meats. In those cases, you might see some chipping with these kinds of things. But they are phenomenal when it comes to skinning, slicing, portioning, raw boneless proteins, or some cooked proteins that don't have as much of a crust on the outside. These are phenomenal slicers, and you'll see them in almost every sushi restaurant, in most kaiseki restaurants. In fact, this is probably the knife that's most transferable skill-wise to Western cooking, along with the deba. I guess everyone breaks down fish, but you can use these for like crudos and carpaccio, and you'll often see people use them even for vegetable work, doing katsuromuki, the rotary peeling, with a knife like this as well. So again, yanagiba, deba, and usuba. Those are the three main kinds of Japanese single bevel knives used in traditional Japanese cuisine. Hope you enjoy.